Welcome to the Leigh Sports Village on a beautiful afternoon in Leigh for the biggest match of the Super 8 qualifiers so far. The Centurions still looking for their first points in this phase of the competition against the Wildcats, looking to back up their big win over Bradford Bulls last time out. Well, Leigh coach Paul Rowley makes 4 changes from the team that was thrashed at Salford last time. In the backs, Johnny Pownall and Greg Worthington come in for Adam Hickson and Matthias Palla, so it's Greg McNally at full-back, Pownall and Worthington, Tom Armstrong and Liam Kay. Martin Ridyard, the captain, and Ryan Browley are the half-backs. Jamie Acton missed the Salford game and he returns at loose forward, and Fui Moi Moi starts as Leeds look for some early impetus up front. Moi and Jake Emmett are the props, Mickey Hyam the hooker, Andrew Dixon, Kurt Haggerty and Jamie Acton complete Lee's run-on 13. On the interchange bench for the home side, Bob Bezic, Sam Barlow, Tom Spencer and Martin Aspinwall, and Paul Rowley is the Centurions head coach. Just 10 survivors from Wakefield's team that lost to Leigh in the Challenge Cup at home back in May. One of them is Chris Riley, who returns to the side this week after the unlucky Richard Owen broke his leg for the second time in 5 years. Riley on the wing with Reese Lynn, Lee Smith is the fullback, Bill Tupu and Joe Arundel in the centre, Jacob Miller and Tim Smith the halfback combination. The rest of Wakefield's starting side, Nick Scruton captains the team in the continued injury absence of Danny Kermond, Michael Seo, Scott Anderson the front row, Matty Ashurst, John Malloy and Mikael Simon. Ali Lawatiti returns to the bench, having missed the last 3 matches alongside Danny Washbrook, Peter Godinay and Anthony Mullally, and Brian Smith takes charge of Wakefield for the 10th time. Well, make no mistake, this is a massive match in the Super 8 qualifiers. Leigh Centurions, who topped the championship with something to spare, losing their first 2 games in this phase to Salford last week and agonisingly against Hull KR in the home match they played at the start of this stage of the competition. Wakefield got off the mark with a big win over Bradford Bulls last weekend, having lost narrowly at Salford, so they look in better shape than Centurions, who despite having played 2 of their toughest games are in a dodgy pot. There is Alan Rowley, father of Paul, taking his granddaughter out onto the field. Maisie is her name, 3 years old. An experience not to be forgotten for her, and from a Centurions point of view, hopefully for the side as well, because they badly need to get off the mark this afternoon. Barry and John alongside me. Barry, Leigh can't afford to lose the 3rd game straight, really, can they?
And they have to put in a good performance. Everybody, good judges, are saying that Leigh versus Wakefield will be that £1 million game. And Leigh Centurions, they did well against Hull KR when we watched them here a couple of weeks ago. They backed that up. Played against Salford last weekend, and Salford took them to task, really. They beat them 46 points to 18. But Wakefield were mightily impressive last weekend, and they won their match against Bradford Bulls 48 points to 18, so everything to play for both sides here today.
James Shaw, the experienced Super League referee, is in charge. Referees in the video booth, Phil Bentham and Peter Brook. Yeah, Barry alluded to the £1 million match that will take place between the 4th place finishers in these middle 8s and the 5th. The 4th place team will have ground advantage, so a lot of people are saying this will be the £1 million game, but if it is, ground advantage at stake here, and that is worth a handful of points, so a big game, even if you look at it in that regard, and that is not the start that Leigh were looking for. A calamitous start!
Wow, Martin
Ridyard.
So reliable in situations like that. It was a good kick-off from Lee Smith, high and hanging, but unfortunately for Leigh, Wakefield in a commanding position now. Scrum, head and field, possession and early pressure to be applied.
Well, Martin Ridyard, well, made his debut in 2009, one of Leigh's most experienced players, and drops an absolute lollipop inside the first minute of this match. The start Wakefield wanted. As Jacob Miller. Good afternoon, Jacob. May I introduce you to Fui Moi Moi? And that's why they've got Moi Moi in from the start. He won't last long. He'll be interchanged off again, you would think, within 15 to 20 minutes, but he certainly made his presence felt there, Fui.
bit stagnant from Wakefield. You'd imagine the setting setting up for something big with Tim Smith.
Well, it was Mikel Simon who took that last drive up. They have made a couple of changes. We mentioned Ali Lauatiti coming out the substitutes bench will give him some impact when he comes on later in the contest. Here is Timmy Smith. There's the out the back door ball. Has virtually every variation of pass. Here's the last tackle. Here's Jacob Miller prodded through. They look to force a repeat and they'll get it this time. McNally's handling is safe, but it was safety first, and he goes to ground and grounds the ball. Goal line dropper.
Yeah, decent first setting possession for Wakefield as well. I've been keen to have a look at how Jacob Miller and Tim Smith have been working in tandem. They've picked up their form as they've entered the qualifying stages. And Jacob Miller, they're still only 22 years of age. We were just talking before we came on air, Barry, how inexperienced he is, relatively speaking, in terms for a top-flight halfback. Their form has really improved, and they'll be guiding Wakefield around the park the next set of 6.
Yeah, Miller's gone really well since Brian Smith took over. 9 tries in 9 games under the veteran Australian, and James Charles blows the first penalty, and Moi this time has gone overboard.
Well, Moi with his second impact of the game. The first one was on Jacob Miller, somebody smaller and more agile, and he's fronting up. There'll be a big battle in the front row. I thought that Scruton and Anderson laid a real solid platform for Wakefield last weekend. If you look at the combination, the 6 and 7, Miller and Smith for Wakefield, Ridyard and Briley for Leigh. There's some similarities there. Young, energetic player, Brian Smith just looking on.
Well, Brian Smith had a choice there, didn't he? Because that would have been a pretty straightforward kick. On an afternoon which is swelteringly hot, John, you can't imagine it's going to be a low-scoring game, though, can you?
That's exactly the point I was going to make. I mean, I think it would be a very negative play to opt for the 2 at this stage in the game. Wakefield, psychologically, as much as anything else, they want to be putting down a marker early on. We're the Super League team, and this is the crown you need to take.
Well, Wakefield, remember, kicked the ball off in this match. Leigh should have had first use of the football. They haven't had it in hand at all to any purpose, really. Haven't had to play the ball in this match up to press, and Wakefield doing all the pressing, and they're going to... I thought Billy Tupou was going to go for the first try of the match, but he kept the ball in hand and he kept himself within the white lines. Sensible move. Looked like he was going to try and go round the outside, but in the end thought better of it. All Wakefield in the early stages here, it really is. And Leigh having to man up and muscle up here. They've shipped in a lot of points in these first 2 games against Super League opponents. There is Sio. And he's within a metre. He's within a metre. Last tackle. So can Leigh hold on here? And what will be the end of their second full set here, Wakefield. They've got men out wide. Miller has the ball stripped. It's hacked on and picked up by Wakefield. James Child says the ball was lost forward by Wakefield. And relief for the Leigh Centurions.
Well, that's the first tick in the box for Leigh. Ryan Briley puts pressure on his opposite number, Jacob Miller. I think the mistake that Bradford made last weekend on the half-backs for Wakefield, they gave them time, stood off them. Well, Ryan Briley got right into the face of Miller.
On the cross, fellas, on the cross, Kurt.
Forced the mistake, and it's the first examination that they've passed.
And there's going to be a few more, I would imagine. That'll be a huge target area for Wakefield. Very comfortable getting to the edges. One of the better teams, despite the low scoring for Wakefield in the regular Super League. Actually getting the ball out to the 3 quarters, they just couldn't capitalise on it when they got there. That link play between Miller and Smith is going to, you're right, examine that right edge, and Brealey.
Oh my, oh Moi. Well, his impact hasn't been what Paul Rowley was looking for. We had that one meaty tackle, but after that, a penalty conceded, now a spilled pill, and problems here for Leigh because they haven't been out of their own 20 with the ball in hand so far. Timmy Smith looked for Anderson, carried on instead. Tupou again, going down a cul-de-sac, flings it inside, and that's a try for Leigh Smith. Leigh Smith makes the pressure pay for the Wakefield Wildcats. They've been knocking on the door off the back of Leigh errors, and Leigh Smith gets the try.
The mistake from Moi that handed possession over to Wakefield. And the Super League side showing how ruthless they are. It's a good shot on the ball from Michael Sio, dislodges the pill, and from that possession it's a nice move. Watch the no-look pass. We talked about it last week from Tim Smith. Leigh had been practicing all week. Whenever Tim Smith is running across the defensive line, get up and take his time off him, and watch the no-look pass. He's actually looking at Andrew Dixon when he passes that ball. And to be fair, when this ball is thrown inside by Tupou, Leigh Smith, the 29-year-old, who's an instinctive player, has enough about him to put himself in the right place to catch any loose passes that come along, and it's the first blood, first try, first 4-pointer to the Super League boys.
First 4 points, but it wasn't the first time they've been down that right-hand edge. Singled out the other half-back for Leigh, Martin Ridyard. He dealt really well with the first two-poo run, and he got that in and away about him. Used the touchline, got Tom Armstrong in from the inside, but didn't wrap the ball up crucially. The second time they tried it, they got the dividends.
Well, Leigh Smith and Billy Tupou, two of the players that Brian Smith has brought in, the cavalry that have arrived at Bellevue. Smith drives it through, and Wakefield have a 6-point advantage early on at a point a minute. Yeah, Brian Smith has shrewdly assembled, well, a new-look squad, really, with 11 new players, and they're two of them.
And this is the angle we were talking about, the little stutter step, the in, the away, Ridyard down below, Kay up top, Armstrong through the back, but nobody crucially locking that arm up, the offload away. It was blind, but he knew, did Tupou, there were going to be players back on the inside supporting him.
Yeah. Leigh Smith, Tupou, Kevin Locke, who's injured, Mullally, Moore, Walker, Griggs.
Go, good.
A lengthy list of players brought in.
Another big shot from
Well, it is,
Moy.
but it has been more oh my, Moy, hasn't it? I mean, he's... And amongst the meaty stuff, there's been some mistakes that have gifted Wakefield the field position.
Well, to be fair, that's Moy's default. What he's employed to do is give you big explosive input. And a couple of times already this afternoon, it's not come off for him, but I don't suppose he's going to stop doing it, Rod.
I thought so. It's 35 years and round about the thick end of 2 decades playing rugby league doing it. Here's a long ball punted forward, and after it goes Liam Kay, and at long last Leigh are going to get some chance to get the ball in hand and hopefully make a little bit of yardage, but they really have been on the back foot ever since Ridyard knocked on at the kickoff.
It ends up being okay, John, but you feel he could have caught that ball on the full Liam Kay?
Just look, I mean, obviously having played in these outside back positions, I do probably favour looking at what's happening off the ball, and Liam Kay had ample opportunity there to get to that on the full. His forwards done a really good job in restricting Wakefield to 40 metres and getting out their own area.
Awful pass by Hyam, a bouncing ball of a pass that somehow managed to find it into a Centurion's pair of hands, but this has been an abject start by Leigh, in all honesty.
That's what I'm saying, Rod. The way that they're playing now, the mentality that this set's playing out, it's down to those little things, those decisions to catch on the full, to go for it, or to leave the ball for the second bounce and give up that extra 10 metres. That's great by comparison with Leigh Smith, and he's chewing up the yards now.
Here comes the galloping Leigh Smith, the former Leeds Rhino, in his second spell with Wakefield. Had a sojourn or two in rugby union also. It's been a case of how boots will travel for Leigh Smith ever since he left the Rhinos. Let's not forget, he was a grand final man of the match winner back in the day, Barry.
I was at that match, Rod, and I'm sure St Helens fans will say he was offside when he caught the ball that actually won the Rhinos the final, but as they say, it's in the history books, and he's made a career out of being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, it has been golden hands. And also scoring a try in the last minute to beat Wigan in the Challenge Cup at Headingley many moons ago, as Timmy Smith hits one into the sky. Good claim, good catch. That's more like it.
Excellent from Greg McNally, been excellent over the last couple of weeks. Scored 5 tries in 3 games, but it's not just his try-scoring ability. He's a good support player, and he's good at the little things. I suppose the overview and the summary of what John's saying is everything matters.
Well, by a statistical quirk of fate, both these teams have had 126 points on the board, for and against, in their first 2 matches. They've been the 2 teams with the most points in their matches so far, averaging over 60. Moy, like a rampaging bullock, goes up towards the halfway line. 3 of them there to take him down. Picked up by Hyam at dummy half. Hyam gets away from one again, throws a wild pass. What is going on as they tip it around? This is the last tackle, remember. Well, if that was in the playbook, I'd like to read it.
No, it's not. Very hurried, very messy, scrappy. Mickey Hyam, experienced player Mickey Hyam, should know better than that. Late on in the tackle count, you need to give it to your kickers, give them time to set, decide where they're going to kick it, kick chase team, get onside, etc.
Perhaps rip that page out of the playbook and tick it on the fire. Wakefield on fire at the moment, John, isn't it?
It is, but this has always been the question with Leigh. They have two really creative players in Ridyard and Brearley. The common knowledge dictates that it's Ridyard who's perhaps the organiser of the two. You need a clear, dominant voice when clearing your lines like that to get away to the kicker. And they're paying the price for it again, giving up position and possession, and another penalty as well.
Well, it's been the lesser spotted Ryan Brierley so far, but it hasn't been his fault because Leigh haven't had the ball and his team have been on the back foot. And here,
I'll tell you who hasn't been lesser spotted.
No, he has been spotted, and he's been spotted by James Child. Well, within 11 minutes, I said he might get the Shepherd's crook around about 15. You'd be thinking that a lot of coaches would say, come and sit next to me, mate, because at the moment, you're going to take us out of the game before we've even started it. And that's another penalty off the back of an error as well. And here is another one blown by James Child, and that's 3 in total. Shove off the ball. And it'll be another one. They'll keep running these, I think. Turning down 2 kickable penalties. Well, 3 all told so far for Brian Smith. He's not interested. He wants more points. They want a dozen before Leigh have had a sniff of the try line. They're not going to get it. Free play. Free play, and they're making the most of it here. This is typical Leigh, of all the panache in the world. Brilliant stuff here for the Centurions. Here's Brierley. Brierley can't get away. That's how to use the free play, and then some. And now Leigh are playing with panache to some tune. Kay and Ridyard. McNally comes into the line. The attack has lost a little bit of impetus as it's picked up now by Johnny Pownall, who scored the try that won the cup tie here against Salford in that exciting cup run that the Centurions have, and now they're going to get a penalty, and at long last they should get to play the ball inside the opposition's 20. But off the back of the error, that's the kind of expansive flair and panache that Leigh are almost unique in.
Well, you look at this, Greg McNally gets the ball. Most players in Super League would never in a million years throw that pass. It's 10 metres right across his try line, and from that possession and that half chance, go down the other end of the pitch. And James Child this time blows his whistle in favour of the Leigh Centurions.
Well, it would have been no surprise given what we've seen from Leigh this season that they scored from that. Moi! Can he get the ball down? Can he get the ball down? Fui Moi. Has he managed to atone for some of the mistakes at the other end? What does James Child believe? He believes it's a try. Moi, with 4 tries this season for Leigh, sniffing a 5th. I wonder if he managed to get the ball to ground.
Well, I'll be honest, when I watched this for the first time, I'm not too sure whether he gets it down. But that's why he's on the pitch. A big man running at a little man. You saw him a minute or 2 ago running at Tim Smith. He bumps off Jacob Miller. Does he get this ball down? That angle's not going to tell us.
I'm not sure whether the question's overgrounded or whether the question is regarding a potential obstruction, which, having looked at that, I don't think there's an issue with it.
So he must be fairly confident. Yeah, it's Greg Worthington who goes through. He's not obstructing a rumble, no. I don't think. Miller just can't. He's no chance of making that tackle. Has he got the ball down? Well,
you'd struggle to say he hadn't.
Yeah.
Phil Bentham and Peter Brook are the video referees, and this might be more of an assistance to them, Barry.
There we go. I'm going to give it the big fella. Yeah. First try to Leigh Centurions.
James Child getting the shout and giving the try. So Fui Moi notches his 5th try. The former Parramatta eel. Not quite slippery as an eel, Fui, but he knows the way to the try line there.
And it all came from this break, didn't it? The ball out the side from McNally on the free play. But as you said, Rod, use the free play in the best possible way, not loose. They were playing high percentage rugby league, and they get the rewards off the back of it. That's a superb try. He's had a dodgy opening 10 minutes as Fui Moi. He's redeemed himself to a certain extent with that.
The kick was missed from Martin Ridyard. So 6-4 off the back of the Moi try. Yes, good point, John, because so often we see, don't we, that the free play is just used aimlessly with a pointless punt downfield, but Leigh there did exactly what they should do with it, played with impunity, knowing that they would get the ball back if it was knocked on, tried something creative and it came off.
And the important thing to tell everybody who's watching that Leigh Centurions unaware of who they are and what they're about is they'll do that 99 games out of 100, and the coach Paul Rowley encourages it There's a short side play there. They're within their own 20-metre line, and they're coming up with stuff like that. Hopefully, when they get up the other end, they give it to big players, and by big, I mean big in presence, and big in experience, big in stature, and they make good decisions.
Indeed. Well, just incidentally, that try by Leigh Smith was Wakefield's 100th try this season. Fui Moi Moi's was Leigh's 211th. Now Wakefield at the bottom of the Super League and Leigh at the top of the Championship.
They can
explains
score
the discrepancy,
tries.
but that's a lot of tries.
They can
211.
They can score tries, Rod. We've already discussed this afternoon that the other part of the game is the bit that they're going to have to focus and concentrate on. They get a repeat possession.
Still, they don't. Still the last tackle, says James Charles, said it wasn't played out by Wakefield. That's a high one. Riley will gobble it up for afternoon tea. Riley back in the team with Richie Owen, so unlucky again. It really was awful to see him break his leg again for the second time in 5 years. His operation is due to be today in Leeds. He's using the same surgeon who's repaired the leg last time, so we wish him the best. It's interesting, actually, John, that Ryan Brierley rang the chairman, Michael Carter, to speak to Richie and go up and visit him in the hospital, which was, you know, really quite nice of Ryan Brierley, wasn't it?
Well, I think that's what you sometimes you don't appreciate. These guys, you know, it's a tough and it's an uncompromising game, but at the end of the day, we're all in this for the same reason. That's because we love the sport, we love the game, and there's no ill will between the players. It is nice to hear those things, and one man's misfortune is another's opportunity, and you know, Chris Riley will be looking to take that with both hands.
Riley, of course, played with Owen at Castleford in the academy. Riley couldn't find a niche in that Castleford side, but he's gone on to become the hottest property outside Super League. Miller is absolutely monstered as he got that ball away, and that's a great take. Yeah, Miller was clattered by Malloy, but it was a great take in the end off the back of it by McNally.
The referee was happy with it, and that has to be the order of the day. They can't give the fabulous kickers that Wakefield have got too much time, but Wakefield trying to apply some pressure while in defence now. Intimidating stuff from the Wildcats.
And they look infinitely more organised, don't they, since the arrival of Brian Smith. Just the chase off the back of the kick, for example. You think Jacob Miller's perhaps found a voice, a real true voice under Brian Smith's guidance.
Here's Hyam. Moi again, and a bowling ball into Skittles' run again from Fui Moi. This time not getting too much change out of two Wakefield Wildcats. Brierley steps up the left and clouts it downfield. Might find touch. Will find touch, and it finds touch on the 30.
There we go. There's a fairly steady percentage play from Ryan Brierley, and I think you'll get your wish now. Moi, who's had a huge impact at both ends of the scale.
Barry, I'm just merely pointing out that's the
usual
usual tactic.
I know you are, but I'm just making sure he knows it's you.
And we bid him a fond farewell. He'll be back. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger, he'll be back. 17 minutes. Well, he is, isn't he? He is. He's the rugby league Terminator, Fui Moi, and he's, look, sometimes there's more to, and he's had a big impact on the field, but there's more to that than bringing a player in, isn't it? Moi has made a huge impact at the whole club, hasn't he? He's a cult player that people can really take to their hearts, and the marketeers can make money out of it.
And that's the point as well. Oh, interception!
Oh my! Well, he's blown the penalty, James Child.
This will be interesting.
It will be.
This will be very interesting to see whether he is offside.
Well, that's what he's saying, John. Let's have a look. Well,
now,
how can he be offside?
Well, the scrum half, from the scrum position, he's not in the scrum, no, but I think he has a duty, doesn't he, to stay behind the back rower's feet, and I guess he's arguing there that he set off too soon. But there's a word of warning there for anybody who's prepared to try anything for Wakefield, that Brierley will be sniffing.
Well, he's certainly going to change Wakefield's approach next time they get a scrum, that's for sure, because they'll be now forewarned and forearmed. But that's the kind of impish scampery that you expect from Ryan Brierley, isn't it? Again, that's why it makes him a must-watch player in the Championship. Barlow in danger of giving away a penalty, but not awarded on this occasion by referee James Childers. Wakefield set up base camp through Scruton right in the middle of the field, 10 metres out from the line. They took the lead from Leigh Smith. Moi got the lead try. Well, that has got to be high again. That really is crazy from Haggerty.
Well, Kurt Haggerty, he's having a go at his inside defence.
Well, I mean,
yeah, that's right, Randan. I think the point he's making is he should have been dealt with. Shouldn't have been allowed to skirt across and come back to the other side.
Well, he certainly dealt with it, Barry, didn't he? His second spell at Leeds. Leigh, even. as Tim Smith, the crowd go up for a forward pass, not blown. Briley had to make the important tackle. Smith is seeing a lot of the football, but he didn't see that one clearly enough, and he spills it.
Well, Leigh having to do a lot of defending this opening quarter, and so far, apart from that one blemish, they've been good. They'd give plenty of penalties away, and the handling errors 3 Wakefield have made, but I guess that's because they've had a lot of the possession.
And the problem for Leigh is not necessarily going to be the next 10-15 minutes. It's after the hour mark, and it's in the last 15 minutes of this game.
Oh, it was a brilliant offload, it really was. Knocked on by Tom Armstrong, but it was an absolutely superb offload from Barlow. It was perfect, it really was.
It's just...
Oh, it's there for him,
it's
John.
Snatched at, isn't it, by Armstrong. I think the general theme with Leigh's, as you've already mentioned, Barry, they're willing to play anywhere, anytime on the field, and that's great to watch. But the stakes are high now. I think you've perhaps got to pick your moments. That was one of them, mind you. I'm making the general point about Leigh perhaps just need to tighten up all aspects of their game a little and concentrate. Getting a little bit carried away with themselves at the moment.
Paul Rowley, what is on? I mentioned the penalties. I mean, a lot was made of Leigh's indiscipline during the season. In the first 21 games, 23 yellows and 8 reds were waved around, but they've been squeaky clean since they played Warrington in the Challenge Cup. That was the game when everyone thought it was going to go off like a bonfire night firework display, and it really was a game that was played in the most brilliant of spirits, and since then Leigh have cleaned up their act completely. And
that again is Paul Rowley, Rod. He's made that adjustment. And this Leigh team will evolve the longer they stay together, the important players, and everybody talks about how Ryan Briley would light up the Super League, and Leigh Centurions, whether it's the fans or the coaches or the top people, the chairman, they're saying hands off, he's a Leigh player, and I'm seeing a theme, and it's a very common theme throughout Super League. Big players running at the half-backs, and I think when I watched where we're seeing no mistake from Wakefield.
No, hang on, I think James Child might think that was stripped out, and Lee Slynn touched the ball down, decided to touch down first and ask questions later.
Got no try, loose carry, just want to check.
He's done the right
with the safety net of the video referee, James Child elects to utilise the 2 officials. He's going downstairs to talk to them.
Well, the player's done the right thing, Reece Lynn. He's picked up the ball, put it down, and probably forced the hand of the referee, but for me that's a mistake.
It's gone down as a no try, and the words out of James Child's mouth was loose carry. Now, obviously, that's one of the areas of the game that's down to the most interpretation, but I think that's a fairly straightforward decision for the video refs to come back with.
Well, we've seen a few over the last few weeks in Super League and the Super 8s. But there is no controversy about that. There's nothing contentious about that. I mean, that is a loose carry, is a loose carry, is a loose carry.
It looked like he was actually preparing to get the ball into 2 hands to make the pass. So I mean, that's, it's entirely his responsibility to keep control of that, and Leigh breathe a sigh of relief because they've been under some pressure.
Well, they've been under pressure really, with the exception of the bust off the free play and then the subsequent Moy try. Apart from that, they haven't had a sniff.
And this is the point I'm making. You can't rely on those flair plays that has got Leigh and such a name and generated such a name for them, the way that they've played in the Championship. This is different football now. This is their semi-final football.
Well, in their last home game in these qualifiers, they romped to a 24-6 half-time advantage over Hull Kingston Rovers before capsizing. This is a very different game, isn't it, at this moment? We're just over halfway through first half, and coming up after this game, the Super 8s continue at 5 o'clock on Sky Sports 5. Catalan Dragons out of the running, but Castleford Tigers very much in the mix, looking for a win that would put them level on points with St Helens and the Huddersfield Giants. Darryl Powell's men. So that well worth watching after this game reaches its conclusion at the Leigh Sports Village, where it is a beautiful afternoon, but not for Leigh so far, but they're very much still in the game. Remember, they lost the first 2 games, arguably 2 of their toughest 3 fixtures against Hull KR and Salford. They've got games that on paper they would be strong favourites from to come, against Sheffield and Halifax. And they face a trip to Bradford, though, which will be interesting, as the kick comes and it goes long, and it's over Chris Riley's head, and it sits up and begs to be picked up, and Riley says, I'll have it, and starts moving away 10 metres out from his own line as he runs into a welcoming committee of 3 Leigh Centurions, Riddard and Aspinall.
Well, we're just into the second quarter of this game. I watched the defensive efforts of Wakefield during that last set. 33 metres Leigh Centurions made. They passed the ball a lot. And now they make a mistake when they're defending and handing over the ascendancy to Wakefield. And Wakefield, I agree with you, John, Wakefield are concentrating and focusing far more on the important aspects of the game, which are tackling well, making sure you're doing your job, fulfilling your role at the right time rather than the spectacular. Leigh won't give that up, by the way, and you listen to Paul Rowley. Paul Rowley wants them to do that, and they will win games playing like that. The question is, will they win this afternoon?
Yeah, well, they need to augment their game. I'm not saying one is at the expense of the other, but there's certain times in the game where you've really got, that's a good kick, good chase, and then everything is undone with a little bit of lax hands in around the ruck, and they find themselves in very familiar territory again, which is facing up against a very organised Wakefield pack led by Tim Smith.
Wakefield on top, but only on top on the scoreboard by 2 points.
I feel this will open up though, Rod. I really do. If Leigh continue to put themselves under this pressure, there are going to be some points sooner rather than later.
You'd have thought so. At the moment, Paul Rowley will be pretty pleased that Leigh are only 2 behind, because it could have been more than that. Tim Smith, oh, that's delightful, the reverse kick, and he got it just a little bit of a smidgen less weight. He deceived them with the way he looked right and kicked left, but didn't quite get the weight.
Wow, he deceived everybody.
Pre-planned play, that one with Jacob Miller. He was the intended target, just overcooked. This is where Leigh are good. This is where they're prepared to throw the ball around. Just see just a little bit too much on it.
Tell me how difficult that is to try and kick that and try and anticipate where it's going to go when everything about him, his body's going one way, he's looking the other. Leigh Centurions have got to try to match that.
Players have been known to dislocate their knee trying to manoeuvre. Barry is Leigh come forward again. Oh, a lovely little flick pass offloaded here to Kay from Armstrong. No space. But what little space there was closed down very quickly by a smothering Wildcats defence, who are looking to maintain their proud record of never having been relegated in Super League. This 17-year stay in the top flight in jeopardy by virtue of the fact they're in this stage of the competition. Now the kick goes high from Martin Ridio, and that disappears over the roof of the stand. That is an enormous bomb. It's claimed on the last by Tom Armstrong, but he couldn't smuggle the ball away to a teammate. Even though he managed to get it, he was enveloped by Wildcats.
It was Leigh Smith who jumped on the pass. He was in the area, ready to catch that pass. As Wakefield under enormous pressure now. You watch him, he almost lets the Leigh player catch the ball. He knows what he's doing. As soon as he hits the ground, both feet are on the ground. He tries to tackle him, the ball comes loose, and he's there to collect it.
Yeah, it's smart play from Leigh Smith, used all his experience there. Some parts of the field, when you've got a couple of metres to play with and you've got men in front of you, let the opposition take the ball, let them take the risk, and then shut down as soon as they hit the floor. And here's Leigh Smith again, clearing kick, should be taken on the full by Kay, that's better. Now take the yard, son, and set your team up for a decent crack at this Wakefield line.
Bang, straight he goes into 3 of them, and he'll play the ball here. Kay, 10 metres inside his own half, probably the best starting position for a set Leigh have had in this entire contest.
That changes completely the mentality of both the attack now and the defence, what they're going to do, how hard they choose to come up, how hard they work from marker. And you need a dominant voice now here. These next couple of tackles as Emmett goes half through.
Jake Emmett, who's doing well to be playing this game, is a victim of a pretty horrific tip tackle in the Salford game last weekend. And has done well to recover, in fairness. Brierley picks it up from dummy half and goes. Ridyard gets it wide, juggling out, try! Pownall, now did he get it down in the end after the juggling he did? Well, not a case of sack the juggler, a case of give the 4 points to the juggler, because Pownall managed to juggle, dive, try, and Leigh hit the front.
Well, Johnny Pownall, who comes back in, he's missed the last 4. He hasn't had an awful lot to do in the opening 26 minutes of this match. And when this ball goes in his path, here you go. This is the advantage of catching the ball on the full. And Liam Kay, who's joint top scorer with Ryan Brierley, has to do something simple, but very, very effective. It's a wonderful pass. Ryan Brierley, Ridyard, with his body and his eyes all facing front, so defenders can't commit to the outside man. Brilliantly executed play and a wonderful finish as well.
Giving it the full thumbs up. Well, Johnny Pownall, juggle, try. 3 times he had a grab at that football and finally managed to reel it in. like an elusive fish before touching down in the corner to put Leigh in front for the first time at 8-6, and they have been battered in this first half by Wakefield, who haven't put points on the board when they've had chances, and that is a sweet strike from the sideline from Martin Ridyard, and they're now up by 4. Wakefield, remember, scored in the 5th minute in this game, haven't scored since. Leigh 10-6.
This is what we were talking about. Liam Kay pinning his ears back. I think he's atoned for some earlier, I guess, hesitancy in taking that ball back. This is what we're talking about. It transforms the mentality of both the Leigh players going forward and the Wakefield players defending, and Pownall makes the very, very most of that superb pass.
Pownall's 19th try of the season, and such has been the prolific nature of Leigh's try scoring, which has given Brian Smith something to think about. There are 5 players in the team today who are in double digits in tries. Pownall is one of them, but even his efforts pale into insignificance with the 34 for Brian Kay. Well, madness.
Johnny Pownall, he's missed the last 4, I mentioned that, but what he didn't say is he scored a hat-trick against Bradford in his last outing, so he certainly knows where the try line is, as do the rest of the Leigh Centurions players.
Well, Pownall was amongst the try scorers in that epic Challenge Cup win that Leigh enjoyed over Wakefield in May.
They're looking to shift it again here. Brealey is going mad off the ball on that right.
Oh, bring it off, blown forward again, but they're offloading with absolute abandon here, the Leigh Centurions, and this is what they can do. And if 1 or 2 of these come off, it'll be carnage. That has just gone forward. It's a very good shout by the touch judge, in all fairness. Brilliant shout, actually, because in amongst all the bodies and hands and arms and legs, to spot that is a super call.
And have a look at Ryan Brealey in the background here. He's wanting the ball, he's wanting to have a crack at that Wakefield left edge, and just the decision to go forward, it nearly paid dividends. Just the pass sneaking forward here from the offload, but it shows they're prepared to play, Rod.
It is, and I'm going to reiterate that, because the match officials get slaughtered from pillar to post at the first sniff of a mistake. That's a brilliant decision.
No doubt.
Move back up, come on, wait.
I like the offloading game, Rod.
I do as well. We all do. That's what people have come to say. Oh, now there's a knee in there. Now then. Well, Peter Godney is trying to get involved here in a catch weight contest, which might be a little bit unwise, but, well, it'll be interesting to see a replay of this, because
well, what Kurt Haggerty can't do is back up mistake after mistake.
He can't put his knee in,
no.
Can he, Barry?
No. It's petulant and indisciplined.
It's folly.
And unneeded.
Now that's just folly. I tell you what, it could be worse than a penalty. What on earth? That is just sheer folly. You've just gone 10-6 up, and you do that.
That's not smart play, is it? Not smart play at all.
It's not smart play at all, John, and it's not smart play when the camera's pointing everywhere.
Yeah, it's cynical, and it shows a lack of respect for the opposition. Yeah, there's no need for that.
Leave it. Time off.
Well, I mentioned, John, didn't I, that Leigh's discipline had really improved dramatically. Haggerty amongst the players sin-binned this year. He's been sin-binned twice this year, but they've been squeaky clean for weeks on end.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me if he's going to add to that tally now, because you know, having a look at that, it's completely out of place with what we've seen for the rest of the afternoon, and what we've enjoyed really throughout these qualifying series.
Let's hear James Child's view. This could be worse than the yellow card.
I think in the neck rather than the head. Yeah. Okay. Kurt, come here, mate. Come here. Oh, okay.
Well, Haggerty hauled over.
Okay, cheers, Rob. Cheers. Yeah, mate. The first offence for me, it was trapped in the tackle, and then Leigh Smith tried to trap him with the leg. Okay, we'll get the benefit of the doubt. There is some contact with the player. Okay, it's more the leg than the knee. Penalty goes against you. The penalty is now about 7-1.
Well, it's going to be a penalty, and that's it.
Well, if you don't,
if I was Ridyard, I'd be walking away now.
Yeah, I would as well.
I'll speak to him.
I think he's very lucky that Kurt Haggerty needs to get his head back in the game, as do the rest of his teammates. Defend this set, because they enjoy playing with the ball, there's no doubt about that. They like to throw it, offload it, run, score tries, but it's this bit that they need to be careful with. I think he's very lucky.
This is where people will have some confusion, because they see a game today like that'll be penalised exactly the same as if you just lay on in the tackle for a second too long. So people will say, well, hang on a minute, that's got to be worse. He's got to be on the field for 10 minutes. Anyway, he's not, and it's 13 aside, and Leigh may be a little bit lucky than that. Ali Lawatiti is on the arch offloader himself. No one offloads quite like Ali Lawatiti, and Wakefield looking to make this penalty pay for them and turn it into 4 points and possibly 6. They trail 10-6. Smith goes himself. Jake Emmett making an important stop with Andrew Dixon, and it was important because Smith was very close to the try line. That is Godinez. And reaching out very closely, but short, I think, and then losing the ball forward.
Knock on, short, double movement. Anthony Mullally, the 24-year-old prop forward.
Well, if anybody could reach out, it was Anthony Mullally. He's 6'4" with the longest levers in the competition.
Not when his hands touch the floor, that's the important bit.
And important to have a look at the guy who's made the tackle as well. That's the same man we were talking about in completely disparaging terms a minute ago. Kurt Haggerty's, he's had a dig there and he's come up with an important tackle.
Yeah, and that's the reaction that Leigh Centurions and Paul Rowley will want. You talked about Ali Lawatiti. What a fabulous player and offloader of the ball. Anybody that watches rugby league and likes the skillful elements of the game will want to watch Ali Lawatiti, but one player who won't like him being on the pitch is Ryan Briley. I think he'd be running at Ryan Briley all afternoon.
Well, the game ebbing and flowing. Wakefield dominant early doors, led through Lee Smith 6-0. Moy's try got it back to 6-4, no conversion, and then Pownall's juggling act followed by the touchdown for the 4-pointer, and the brilliant sideline conversion from Ridyard gives Leigh the advantage here, looking for their first win in the Super 8 qualifiers after back-to-back losses, and this would be a biggie. Lee Smith throws out a biggie, that's a whopper of a pass, and Reece Lynn looking to get on the gallop, but is reined in over on that far side, 30 metres out from their own line here, the Wildcats.
Well, I wonder who made that decision, Rod. Leigh kicked on the third tackle then, choosing to get the ball away from their own end. It was Martin Ridyard who kicked the ball. You'd like to think that as chief organiser he said, look, let's just get out of here. They need a bit more of that, Leigh.
It needs to be a bit better quality as well, because they're really inviting Wakefield back onto the ball, but a mistake again.
This is going to be play on, this is going to be play on, and Liam Kay, he's tripped over his own feet and the ball. Who's got it? Wakefield have got it. Oh my goodness. Well, that was a foot race, it was a football race, and now at the other end, Tupu. Fabulous passage of play.
Nobody can get him down.
Marvellous stuff.
That's why rugby league players didn't play football.
Well, the ball was spilled, and then Kay and Armstrong went on a tag team dribble down the field, and then, oh dearie me, over the ball, over his feet. Tupu picked it up. Well, had they scored then, goodness, they could have been up by, what, 10 points going into half-time. The game turns once more. Is that a big turning point in this match as Smith gets his hands on the ball as well? Danny Wasbrook trying to wrest his way free, offloads to Godinez! And Godinez is dragged down by his ankles. Leigh fans going wild, that's a penalty.
Is that a professional foul?
I think it is a professional foul. The team warning, he's doing the full arm-winding motion. In fact, it should have been a sin bin straight away. I think, Barry, like you, it was a professional foul. Could have been a yellow, it wasn't. Penalty count goes to 8-1 to Wakefield, batted down. That's another professional foul. Really, it'll be just a scrum, but it could be a penalty for a dribble at knock-on. It's all happening, John Wells.
It is. I mean, the shame is a great tackle again from Sam Barlow, but I'm going to have a look at the break, the initial break. This is superb pass. This was the knockdown we've just seen a second ago from Liam Kay to try.
By the way, if that isn't a deliberate knock-on, I don't know what is. Anyway,
that's the tackle we were talking about from Sam Barlow. That's a try save. Just a shame they went and made a mess and a meal of the play, the ball after the back of it. Dixon coming through with a clumsy challenge on Godinez.
There's the dribbling skills, and Billy Tupu, who picks this ball up and refuses to be tackled. He's already brought 2 or 3 and goes on a rampage up the pitch. He's looking for somebody, desperate for somebody to pass to.
In fairness, there was a little bit of rivalry about his dribbling skills. It's a lot more difficult to dribble a rugby ball than a football, Barry. It's not that easy.
It is.
Brian Smith leaves his seat. Brian Smith, well, one wonders what Brian Smith is thinking. Angela Powers down on the sideline will be getting his thoughts at half-time. Interested to see what he thinks as Barlow departs, holding his wrist at the back of the post there. You just see him in the back of the shot. That will not be good news for Leigh, the rumbustious, rampaging Sam Barlow. Let's see what Wakefield make from this scrum. 6.5 or 6 minutes 15 to go in the half. Miller spilled as he drops off free play, and it's all the fun of the fair. There appeared to be an obstruction in back play there. Well, it really is quite literally all happening. He's going to go back here to the scrum, James Child, but I think McNally was chopped down without the ball, and that might be worth a look. He might get a little call in his ear here.
Well, James Child gives head and feet to Leigh Centurions. There's an obvious mistake. It's a drop-off play, and there's a collision. The ball goes into the path of Greg McNally. I probably think it might be being harsh. Pick it up and run. I'm not so sure about the decision.
But it's the speed with which they get off the line that impressed me. They really, Haggerty and the Leigh player inside him really got off the line. Tom Spencer, I think it is, just come on the field for Sam Barlow into the faces of the Wakefield players, and they've turned that scrum around now. That's potentially a huge play in the context of this game.
And he's not got up, Kurt Haggerty. You see when he lunges, I think it's for Jacob Miller, he lunges and leaves all his ribs and back and spine exposed, and then gets a real whack as he collides. And thankfully Kurt Haggerty, who shares his first name with one of my all-time favourite players, Kurt Sorensen. Let's have a look. They really hurt them.
He's collected Arundel's knees, hasn't he, in his back on the way through.
It's the ones that you're not expecting that catch it off guard, and they really hurt you, them.
Okay, cheers,
so
guys.
thankfully he's up and he's ready.
Okay,
he's ready to get back involved.
Yes, King Kurt Sorensen, Barry, the leader of the Widnes pack back in the late 80s and early 90s.
Brilliant player.
Oh, let's go.
Ferocious, fearsome man.
The moi of his day, I would say.
Here's a kick. Now then, they've got the speedsters after it. They've got Kay after it.
Dive on
Kay
it.
chips on. Must dive on it. Must score. Must score. That is a sensational Leigh Centurions drive in the face of the scrum.
Just want to check.
An impudent move. They had
check
the
grounding.
pace. They had the
There is a
speed.
slight
They had
pullback as
Kay.
well,
They had the silky soccer skills this time. And Kay appears to have extended the lead to 14-6.
Well, this is Leigh Centurions, Rob. They're looking for offside, onside. Everybody's onside because everybody knows exactly what's coming. And I thought, just dive on it and take the ball, but shows you what I know about playing wing, John Wells.
It's the only thing they had to look for. The only thing they had to question, was he onside? I think we answered that in the affirmative. Yes, he was. The try's awarded. And the try scorer, Liam Kay, isn't this an irony for you? Released from Wakefield at the end of the 2013 season. 2014 for Leigh, 27 tries. 2015 for Leigh, that is his 29th try in all competitions. Fantastic.
Well, this is Paul Rowley's hallmark, really. If there's an easy option, let's throw it in the bin and let's take the difficult one. This is his 35th try of the season, Liam Kane, as if you've already mentioned, Rob. There's plenty of players that are right up there in double digits. That's because they look to score on every opportunity.
And what about the confidence from Kay as well? Because Kay and Armstrong were the two involved in that little football match 5 minutes ago. The temptation must have been.
Ridyard strikes it superbly again. And Leigh now are suddenly into a double-digit lead at 16-6. Wakefield led 6-0, but Paul Rowley's team have turned it around with tries from Moy, Pownall, and now Kay. And this is the kind of try, this is the kind of audacious panache that makes Leigh such an attractive side to watch.
In all the excitement, Rod, we've probably not paid enough attention to Martin Ridyard's kick. And the ability to kick the ball and have it roll on. He'll have already adjusted the ball in his hand, knowing which spot he needs to kick it on for it to roll on. And here we see the Billy Tupu run. And the time that those two plays that you mentioned, Armstrong and Kay, got it wrong, and they backed that up with getting it bang right the next opportunity they have.
Wait, guys, wait. On the go, wait. Go.
Well, remember, against Hull Kingston Rovers, they bossed the first half and led by 18 at the break. They're nowhere near bossing this one, and the lead is smaller, and that will not help as Emmett throws a pass. As you mentioned, John, you have to know when to hold them and when to fold them. That was a time to fold the cards with 3.5 to go in the first half, and they now conceded position and possession in a dangerous area. Very dangerous, in fact.
There we go, Kurt Haggerty. He's already looking at the defender. You're not going to change this Leigh side. It's an exciting roller coaster if you're a Centurions fan.
Well, they've had a few highs, are they going to have a low here? Miller! Jacob Miller dances through, rolls over, and Miller scores again. The Wildcats' leading try scorer this season is 14th of the season, is 10th since Brian Smith arrived at the club, and that is a big, big try for Jacob Miller, which gets Wakefield right back into the contest.
Well, Leigh Centurions seem to have all the ball over the last 5 or 10 minutes, but Jacob Miller and Wakefield Trinity Wildcats do exactly what they plan to do all week. Get down here, come down here, and if there's an advantage, take it. It's Mickey Hyam, who's the inside defender. Kurt Haggerty just pushes on a little bit too hard, and a small, agile player in front of 2 big blokes. Jacob Miller gets his side back in this game, and that scoreboard looks a lot healthier than it would have done a couple of minutes ago. A bit of pushing and shoving, bit of nonsense after.
This is really the challenge now for Leigh. Well, now, it's a bit of gamesmanship from Lauatiti, but he shouldn't be doing that.
Well, it's nonsense. I mean, all this patting of heads, goading opponents after errors it's literally pathetic.
Yeah, he's an experienced player. There's no need for that. And I think it belies their own insecurities, really. They've not performed at a level that I think you could expect from Wakefield, given how they've performed in the last 2 weeks. This is down on that.
Well, we're here to play rugby league, and we've seen in and amongst some great rugby league. We've seen 5 tries, 2 from Wakefield, that one from Miller, the second of them, and Leigh Smith makes an awful mess of that. You don't know what's going to be important and what's not going to be important. Come the final analysis, that could be the difference. As it is, it leaves the gap at 6. Miller, silky sidestepping.
Hasn't he improved as well? I've said it before, since the arrival of Brian Smith.
Guys, last 2 minutes.
And some players respond to different things. Jacob Miller's obviously found a seam of form there. Perhaps a little bit of the organisational side of the game taken away from him by Tim Smith, just to freeing him up to play that running game and operate with that superb step that he's got.
Well, he had an unfortunate and unsuccessful spell, you would have to say, at Hull, but Hull must have seen something in him to bring him across in their search for a half-back combination.
Well, he started his career at West, didn't he? I think Mick Potter was the coach at the time and blooded him for the first 4 or 5 games of that season. Looked to have great potential.
80 seconds to go in a first half, which has brought much entertainment and 26 points. Can Wakefield tie the scores as the clock ticks round to the half-time siren? This could be their last set of 6, probably will be, in fact. Danny Washbrook on the last here. 30 metres out, centre field, got an A, begging for a penalty, not giving one by James Child, and up goes the kick from Smith. Could be anybody spilled forward by Wakefield. For my money, play on, says James Child, as the Centurions come up with a football, and they should, if they can just curb their enthusiasm, run out the set.
Well, Greg McNally was under enormous pressure as he leapt for that ball, and Wakefield Trinity Wildcats were a bit too enthusiastic for the referee James Child's liking. Peter Godinay, he's come on and made a difference in this match.
Well, this penalty, Barry, does give Leigh half a squeak, because they will get a play on the halfway line. Now they can just bang it up into the air and hope to get something, or will they just say no thanks, we'll just take the 6-point lead and disappear?
Unpredictable.
Well, you look, and Wakefield are planning for that as well. Look how the wingers have dropped off already.
Last play, looking for a drop goal, I think, from long range. And not his best, and it will go dead, and that will bring the first half to a conclusion. Paul Rowley's team have done very, very well, because they've soaked on a lot of pressure in that first half to lead at the interval, having gone behind very early on. Leigh Smith had given Wakefield a lead in 5 minutes. Moi Pownall, and then Kay gave Leigh a 16-6 advantage before Jacob Miller scored that try just before half-time to make it a 6-point gap at the interval. Can the Centurions hold on to get their first win of the Super 8 qualifiers?